Alright, this video will look at the compatibility of science and Christianity. Before we begin to look at this compatibility, I first want to give a definition of science and the root meaning of this word. So from Etymology Dictionary, it reads here that from the middle 14th century, what is known, knowledge of something acquired by study or information, would be the definition of science. Also, assurance of knowledge, certitude of certainty. That's from the Old French. Science, knowledge, learning, application, corpus of human knowledge. 12th century from Latin, scientia, knowledge, a knowing, expertness. So again, you see all this. It's science is really just knowledge of something, and generally it's acquired through study and information. Some of these are even refer to certainty of this knowledge. I like this use of the word from 1872 from John Ruskin, The Eagle's Nest. It says, in science you must talk before you know. In science you must not talk before you know. In art you must not talk before you do. In literature you must not talk before you think. So again, here his use of the word science would be implying a knowledge of something. All right. Go into just a straight definition from a modern day dictionary. Dictionary.com here. You see science is a branch of knowledge or study dealing with the body of facts or truths systematically arranged and showing the operation of general laws. Example, the mathematical science. Any of the branches of natural or physical science, systemized knowledge in general. The fifth option there, knowledge as of facts or principles, knowledge gained by systematic study. So again, it's knowledge somehow gleaned through systematic study. Now, when we talk about science, what people then generally, they can mean a lot of things, right? But the scientific method would be defined by these options here. You see 1 through 7. Observation. Statement of a problem or question based on those observations, formulation of a hypothesis or a possible answer to the problem or question that arises from your observations of the world. Fourth, the testing of the hypothesis with an experiment. Then you analyze the experiment's results. After that analysis, you interpret the data and formulate a conclusion, and you publish your findings. And again, you repeat those experiments again and again and again and again and again, and you analyze all the results. As you share your findings, other people should be able to see it, be able to replicate the experiment exactly the way you did it, and likely then their experiment should yield the same results. And then people can tweak it with little slight changes within the experiment and see if different results are yielded, and probably conclusions can be made over if that tweak then caused the difference that we ended up seeing. So that would be scientific method. That's usually what people should be thinking of in our day and age, I believe, when they hear the word science. However, a lot of science, like evolution, or at least the theories of Darwinian evolution of all life here springing forth from single-celled organisms over long periods of time, that can't actually be experimented upon, tested, and observed. We've only been able to observe change within species. Even looking at bones, this would be taking facts and information, principles, and then based on what we're seeing, be able to come to hunches or conclusions based on the data we're collecting. Again, that type of observation of bones and rock and mineral and stuff like that, to then piece it all together to fit with a theory of life coming from single-celled organisms, or the life as we see it now coming from single-cell organisms. None of that fits into the scientific method. The key thing with science, though, the way people generally present science, is that because of science, man can boldly go where we haven't gone before with technology, with being able to heal diseases and things like that. So it's through this experimentation that the technology boom that we have experienced in the last couple centuries has come about. And the idea with science then is that the sky is the limit. At least that's how it's presented. And in the realm of science mingling with faith, the general depiction is that science and Christianity are at odds with one another. Within Kenneth Sample's book, Without a Doubt, chapter 14, it's labeled Aren't Christianity and Science Enemies? He begins by just presenting a quote from mathematician philosopher Bertrand Russell, in which Russell said that Christianity has been an opponent to all intellectual progress, especially in the area of science. So that would be one example of a person having this view. And what Kenneth Samples begins to present is that, is this really a versus issue? Can the two be complementary? So instead of addressing this view that science must believe in evolution, must believe in an old Earth, must believe that the dinosaurs all died before mankind was here on the earth living. Instead of presenting that view, which according to conservative traditional interpretations of Scripture would be how Christians come to view those or get their answers on those issues. Instead of saying science, if you support science, you must encapsulate all of those beliefs. Therefore, if you're Christian and you don't hold those beliefs about Darwinian evolution, age of the earth, things like that, you must therefore be against study and progress with technology and growth in knowledge. And Ken Samples is going to show us how, in fact, Christianity and science can be compatible. It doesn't mean that if you're a Christian you have to be unscientific or anti-scientific. Okay, and the way he first begins this is by presenting that modern science, again, that scientific method, which is now accepted and spread and used across the globe, emerged in Europe in the middle of the 17th century. And he begins by asking these questions then. If this is where science emerged, why here? Why did it take so long within humanity's history? Why did it not emerge at the same time all over the globe at once? All right. According to Stanley Jackie, it's because a certain philosophical worldview is required for science to emerge. He says that science was stillborn in other great civilizations outside of Christian Europe because prevailing ideas not only failed to nourish but also stifled its development. So we need to look at what those ideas were that would have stifled its development. Kenneth Samples lists these views right here, that a cyclical view of time, common with the pagan understanding of the world, astrology, deifying nature, denying nature, as well as an arbitrary and whimsical nature of gods, helped restrict or keep this scientific method from emerging. So to look at the cyclical view of time, if all things are cyclical, ultimately then it's a deterministic view of the world. This hinders progress because it promotes complacency. If you look at that image there, if you know everything you do is just going to come full fold and be back to where it was, you do not have a proper motivation to progress or to learn, because eventually you're just going to come back as you are before you glean that knowledge. It also provides no adequate basis to explore cause and effect, because again, everything's just going to repeat. This is very common view within Eastern religions with karma and reincarnation. And again, those views, they don't really support this idea of needing to progress in this life, in that what you do in this life will not be lost, but carried on into the future. It will just repeat itself. Astrology. Astrology is the fate of nations and people were determined by the stars. The idea was well ingrained all over the ancient world. Romeo and Juliet is a good example of this, how the stars dictated what was going on in the lives and affairs of men. Romeo and Juliet were called star-crossed lovers. It comes from this view that their stars were not aligned. I actually have a friend from Vietnam. His parents are probably in their late 50s, I imagine, or mid 50s. And they were married in Vietnam, and before they could get married they actually had to have their palms read, they had to have their signs checked, the years that they were born checked. All this stuff had to run through a filter for approval to make sure that everything was okay and that their marriage would be good based on such things. Alright, so if who you marry, what type of jobs you have, your disposition, if all that is based on the stars and things that are just in place like that, it really restricts this view of, again, finding out answers to why things happen, because in this worldview of astrology, everything's already determined, and so there's no need for study and inquiry, because you can't change the stars. Your fate is already set if you go against them. Pantheism. This hindered science. This is basically the deifying of nature. And the idea is, how can you subject God to testing? Denying nature also killed the birth of science. This is another one. For instance, Hinduism had Maya. Plato had dualism. The physical world that we see now isn't the real world. It can't be trusted. It's illusionary. It's an aspect of a higher reality. So if we can't trust our reality that we have now in the physical world, how can we investigate that reality? So this view of denying nature also limited and kept people from practicing science. Arbitrary and whimsical gods helped prevent science as well. All right, they behaved like hormonal teenagers. They weren't stable. They were unpredictable. Why does this prevent science? Science needs a world of order and regularity to function. All right, and the Christian worldview obviously offers that type of reality. Colossians 1 lets us know that the world was created by God and for Him, and that in Him all things are held together. So when you have a good, unchanging God who holds all things together, you can have a world that is dependable and consistent. So that if you make an experiment at one point in time, you should be in one particular place, you should be able to repeat that same experiment at a different point in time in a different place, because we understand that the world operates under this unified control and system that God Himself has designed and put in place. And that He's not going to, based on His emotions, release the Kraken and just cause chaos to unfold. All right, so science in the womb in the High Middle Ages. Within Europe, you had some key things taking place. Important Greek and Arabic texts were translated to Latin. You had the establishment of great European universities. And Christian theologians and philosophers affirmed the value and importance of studying the natural world, which was created by God. Modern science, then, was born in the cradle of a Christian civilization. Virtually all the founding fathers of modern science were Christian, and there's a list of them that Kenneth Samples gives. Copernicus, Kepler, Galileo, Newton, Boyle, and Pascal, all Christians. Obviously, an argument can be raised that there was science and things being done along those lines, at least in the similar method as what we have with the current modern scientific method within Islamic culture. There are some arguments to that, but what you see is that, according to Samples, the advanced state of medieval Islamic culture suffered from belief in the arbitrary nature attributed to the Muslim deity Allah. So everything was actually deterministic by Allah within Quran, and absolutely nothing happens except what He has determined. And sometimes I would like to have more understanding of this, but seems to fit. You had great advances within Islamic culture, but overall, you don't see this full-blown emergence of the scientific method within Islamic culture. Christian doctrine also nurtured the experimental method because the heavens declared the glory of God, and the Bible exhorts God's people to pursue wisdom. And so what they saw was, by learning and understanding more about the world, they would be learning and understanding and growing closer in knowledge and relationship with the Lord who made the world. All right, and obviously, so I think some people today could miss that Christianity isn't against pursuing intellectual virtues, because I believe overall what's being taught in the church isn't as much the intellectual virtues that God calls us to pursue, but instead the moral virtues. The Bible does call us to cultivate the life of the mind to the glory of God and to pursue wisdom, knowledge, and understanding, and that we're called to practice discernment, reflection, testing, and intellectual renewal. So you see that Christianity is not opposed to progress in pursuing knowledge, and in fact, the Christian worldview helps give birth to the scientific method.